Welcome to Chronicles and Curiosities. I'm Erin.
The words were small, torn cleanly from a page, folded once, then again. Hidden inside the fob pocket of a pair of trousers. Tamám Shud. It is finished. On December 1st, 1948, a man was found lying against the sea wall at Somerton Beach, just outside Adelaide, South Australia. At first glance, he appeared to be asleep, but he was dead. Two young men had noticed him the evening before. He was seated upright, back against the seawall, legs stretched out toward the sand. He did not appear distressed. They assumed he was drunk or resting. By morning, he had not moved. Police arrived. There were no visible injuries, no blood, no sign of a struggle. The sand around him was undisturbed. He was dressed carefully, a brown suit, pressed shirt, tie, polished shoes. A cigarette rested behind his ear. Inside his pockets were ordinary items: a comb, matches, bus and train tickets, cigarettes, loose change. There was no wallet, no identification. Most laundry tags had been removed from his clothing, but not all. A label reading Keen remained on a vest and matched clothing found later in his suitcase. It suggested a deliberate, but incomplete, attempt to remove identity. The autopsy deepened the mystery. The man was estimated to be in his early 40s. He was in excellent physical condition. Muscular in the upper body, described as having the build of a dancer or athlete. His teeth were healthy, his nutrition good. This was not a frail man. Internally, however, something was wrong. His organs were congested. His spleen was enlarged, reportedly 3 times its normal size. There was blood pooling in the liver. The pathologist suspected poisoning. Yet, toxicology tests found nothing. No digitalis, no barbiturates, no strychnine, no detectable toxin. In 1948, forensic toxicology had limits. Some compounds were difficult to trace. Sudden cardiac events were harder still to prove. No definitive cause of death was established. The official record remained inconclusive, and that ambiguity became the foundation for everything that followed. Months later, during a re-examination of his trousers, police discovered something small and unsettling. Inside the fob pocket, the small watch pocket sewn into men's trousers, was a tightly rolled scrap of paper. Not in his coat, not loose among coins, but tucked away. Printed on it were 2 Persian words: Tamám Shud. It is finished. The phrase came from the Rubáiyát of Omar Khayyám, a collection of Persian poetry translated into English and widely circulated in Australia at the time. Police issued a public appeal. Eventually, a man reported that he had a copy of the Rubáiyát in the back seat of his unlocked car near Somerton Beach. Unlocked. In 1948 Adelaide, people often did not lock their cars. This was not a secret exchange, not a spy drop. It was a stranger tossing a book into an open vehicle. The last page of the book had been torn out. It matched the scrap found in the dead man's pocket. Inside the back cover were 4 lines of capital letters. The second line was crossed out. The handwriting was uneven, not symmetrical, not structured like formal encryption. Over the decades, cryptographers attempted to decode it. Some believed it was a cipher. Others thought it might be shorthand. Carl Webb, as we now know, was known to enjoy horse racing. Many modern researchers believe the letters may have been shorthand, a list of horses, race results, personal tracking notes. The crossed-out line becomes less cinematic under that lens. It becomes a correction in a list, not a message to Moscow, but perhaps a note from a gambler. Inside the book was also a phone number. It belonged to a nurse named Jessie Harkness, also known as Jessica Thomson. She had once given a copy of the Rubáiyát to a soldier named Alf Boxall during the war. Police found Boxall alive. He still had his copy, which meant the dead man's book was different. Jessie denied knowing the deceased, but one detail has long fascinated researchers. Her son, Robin, shared two extremely rare physical traits with the Somerton Man: hypodontia, a congenital absence of upper lateral incisors, and an unusual shape of the ear known as the cymba. These traits are rare. They do not prove paternity, but they strengthen the genealogical investigation decades later. Professor Derek Abbott would eventually use such clues to pursue DNA testing. Police later located a suitcase checked into the Adelaide railway station cloakroom. It was believed to belong to the deceased man. Inside were clothing items, tools, thread, scissors, electrical repair equipment. Among the items was Barber's brand waxed thread. At the time, this specific British thread was not widely available in Australia. It suggested access to imported goods. It fueled speculation that he had traveled from overseas. But again, access is not proof. Imported goods were not impossible to obtain. Speculation grew where certainty did not. It was 1948. The Cold War was beginning. Australia was home to the Woomera Range Complex, a top-secret Anglo-Australian missile testing site. Adelaide was connected to defense research networks. The Venona project had recently exposed Soviet espionage activities worldwide. So when investigators faced an unidentified man, possible poisoning, removed labels, a cryptic code, a woman linked to him, the spy theory felt plausible. It did not come from nowhere. But no intelligence agency ever claimed him. No classified documents have linked him to espionage. The theory grew in atmosphere, not evidence. For 70 years, he remained the Somerton Man. Then, in 2022, genealogical DNA testing identified him as Carl Charles Webb. Born in Melbourne in 1905, an electrical instrument maker, married to Dorothy Webb. Records indicate the marriage had broken down. Dorothy had moved to South Australia. Carl traveled to Adelaide in 1948. Why? We cannot say with certainty. But historically, the simplest explanation carries weight. He may have gone searching for her, not to deliver secrets, but to repair something already fractured. The identification shifted the narrative from international conspiracy to personal tragedy. The autopsy remains inconclusive. Poison suspected, never proven. Natural causes possible, not confirmed. The code remains unread, but the man is no longer anonymous. He was not a cipher. He was Carl Webb, a man separated from his wife, possibly distressed, possibly unwell, carrying a book of poetry about endings. The Rubáiyát speaks often of time slipping forward, of wine poured briefly, of life passing quickly, of dust returning to dust. Tamám Shud, it is finished. We do not know what those words meant to him. A bookmark, a symbol, a final acknowledgement? We cannot know. But we can say this. For decades, the world preferred him as a mystery. Because mysteries feel grander than heartbreak. A spy feels larger than a lonely man. But history, when approached carefully, restores proportion. On a quiet beach in 1948, a man sat beneath an open sky. He did not rise. He was not a legend. He was Carl Webb, Tamám Shud. It is finished. For him. For us, what remains is not conspiracy. It is restraint and the quiet responsibility of telling the story as accurately as history allows.